I'm Sel Gaston, and this is Find Your Daily Calm. Hello, dear friends. Today, I have a special treat for you. We're taking a delightful stroll down memory lane with an interview I had on the Zen Commuter podcast, hosted by the incredibly kind and insightful Thom Walters. Imagine if Superman himself, Henry Cavill, had a podcast. Yes, Thom's voice is that comforting and strong. And if you mix in a dash of the wisdom and warmth of Father Mike Schmitz, you've got Thom in a nutshell. In our conversation, Thom and I dive into some beautiful topics like sticking to your meditation practice, the importance of self-care, and ways to deepen your mindfulness journey. Trust me, it felt like chatting with an old high school friend, and I'm thrilled to share this conversation with you all. Before we dive in, make sure to check out Thom's wonderful work at Zen Commuter. That's www.zencommuter.com. His podcast is a treasure trove of insights and tranquility. Now, without further ado, let's tune into this episode, a rebroadcast of Zen Commuter podcast, aired August 2023.
Life is so much fuller when you are calmer, wiser, and happier. If that sounds good to you, sit back and enjoy another relaxing episode of Zen Commuter. Good morning, travelers, and welcome to your morning Zen Commute. I'm your host, Thom Walters, and this is Zen Commuter, your Monday through Friday meditation podcast aimed at moving you forward peacefully, helping you live a calmer, more satisfying life. Today, I'm excited to bring to you a podcaster. Not just any podcaster, a podcaster who knows mindfulness like the back of his hand. Sel Gaston is the host and creator of Find Your Daily Calm. As he explains it, Find Your Daily Calm is a podcast that allows you to retreat to your place of peace and calm. Find guided meditations and other literary works that will comfort you and give you your needed daily dose of calm. As you might expect, calm is important to Sel and myself. So much so that we've both created podcasts to help people find that elusive calm. You know, as a quick aside, one of the things I love about meeting all these guests is the fact that they are, since they're meditators, pretty chill. They've got a great energy about them. In fact, I don't think I've ever interviewed one guest where I got done and I was like, eesh, that was painful. Nope. Everybody that I meet is just so light emitting and loving, and Sel was obviously no exception. He was just so vibrant and alive and kind, and you can hear it in his voice and you can hear it in our interview. If you don't believe me, just sit back and enjoy my interview with Sel Gaston. I start the interview by asking him how long he's been meditating and where he learned.
I started in 2001. My brother tagged me along to an orientation for a meditation approach. And I didn't know at that time it was the TM, the Transcendental Meditation.
Right.
So from then on, as they say, the rest is history. I was hooked. That's how it started.
Exactly. Now, have you been studying other aspects of meditation other than TM, or are you kind of like, I'm a TM guy and that's where I'm going to stay?
Oh, there's a lot. There's Zen meditation, and there's also walking meditation.
Mm-hmm.
There's also other Buddhist types of meditation, and then even the Christian types of meditation, particularly the Catholic ones.
Right.
But as they say, enlightenment, if that's what you're looking for in meditation, it's a pathless path.
Right. Exactly. Now, is your brother a meditator as well? If he dragged you along, I would imagine that he is, unless he fell off the path.
Off the wagon. He does meditate. I'm sure he does it every morning still. Yeah.
Nice. But I would imagine he is not as passionate about it as you are, correct?
Oh, he has other passions. He does other things. And he's older than me, about your age, Thom.
Oh, no way.
So he's a chill guy, especially now that he's an empty nester. now.
Oh yeah. Nothing gets you chiller than having all the kids fly the coop.
Yeah. Can't say I look forward to that, but it'd be interesting to know.
Well, you've got a while, don't you?
Well, I'm facing a couple more years.
Right. Yeah, I was just gonna say your kids are like 16, correct?
No, the youngest is 13.
Oh,
the
okay.
eldest is 13, and the
you got
youngest
plenty
is
of time.
A couple more, yeah. And what is time?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's definitely a conversation for another time. That's a little heavy duty for 9 a.m. or 9 at night. With TM, did you find any challenges in learning? I know it's a pretty regimented path with TM as opposed to other meditations, but were there any challenges that you had?
There was. There were moments that I would ask pertinent questions like, if something itches, can I scratch it?
Great question.
And if I hear noise, like the noise I heard from a chatter or with my friend, and that's all I hear, do I brush it off? So I get interesting questions from my coach and mentor at that time.
So now I'm going to put you on the spot then. I'm going to ask you to answer those questions. So if you have an itch during a meditation, what do?
Scratch it. As simple as that. It shouldn't get in the way. It's the same with mental chatter or noise. If you brush it off, the more you resist it, the more it persists.
Yep, exactly. One of the things and it's an interesting question because, to be honest, it comes up every now and then for me. I'll be meditating and I'll get a scratch. Sometimes they come in threes. In fact, 2 days ago, sitting on the bleachers out at the ball field, just meditating in the sun. And then I'm like head, nose, and chin. And I'm like, one came on. I'm like, okay. And what I tell my students is that there are two things. And first and foremost, you're absolutely right. If you got an itch, scratch it. Yeah. Most people think that meditation is like so sacred that if you were to sneeze, if you were to scratch, if you were to do anything, like they'll be like blasphemous. I'm like, no, relax.
Well, that's a great way of seeing it. If people think that meditation is sacred, my answer and response to that is yes. You yourself are already sacred.
Right.
And everything that goes on with you, on you, in you is sacred. So you got to respond to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one of the things I do tell my students is that if you have an itch, our natural reaction is to scratch. But one of the things that meditation teaches us is that we don't have to react. We don't have to just jump at it. So what I tell my students is that if you have an itch, let it go for a little bit. Yeah. Don't automatically react. You can see it for what it is, not get drawn into the story, just like many thoughts, and just like feel it. And where is it? And just like with pain, is it warm? Is it cool? Is it localized? Is it kind
radiating?
Exactly, radiating. Exactly. Thank you. And so you do that. Now, I will say that, and I've done that, and then sometimes it goes away, sometimes it doesn't. But if we take that energy of like, I got to scratch it out, just like a thought, then we're pretty cool. I say that, but there are times that I tell them, like, if it's getting in the way of your practice, after you do those things, then yeah, absolutely scratch and have no remorse or no regrets about doing so. Right. So I'm glad that we are both on the same page with that. And you bring up a great point too, that anytime that we are pushing anything away, it only comes back stronger. And I can't believe that that's not a common philosophy for many people. They think they get just, with distractions. I mean, one of the main reasons I teach meditation is to help people deal with distraction and help them be focused, obviously at work or what have you. And most people don't want to be alone with their thoughts, so they just distract themselves. Yeah. But the more you push away, the more it comes back.
That's true. Well, with people with mental noise, that's their basic thing. That's why they always tell themselves, I want to get away from this.
Right.
I want to get away from myself, which is, well, impossible.
I was going to say kind of tough.
Yeah. So if in some remote instances you're able to do that, then that's not mindfulness. You're in another place where you probably are not mindful. Maybe your mind is full,
but you're not mindful.
Right.
I like that distinction. The other thing too is, for me, one of the main benefits of meditation is the exact opposite. I don't want to run from myself. I want to turn into myself and learn and focus on who I am. And even that, as we know, is the most nebulous concept in the world. I'm like, who we are. For many people, it's like, oh, I'm Thom Walters. I live in New Hampshire. I'm like, well, I'm in this. I'm playing this role. I'm in this body. But no, all the things that make me are totally created, totally generated, and at the risk of sounding esoteric and saving something for another conversation, I'm like, no one really exists per se, but we'll definitely have to save that for another conversation.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. You got me thinking there, Thom. That's really about being in the moment.
Right.
There's one Zen tale, very short tale that I remember. He goes, there was this young man who was in the forest, and he was meandering. He was looking at the sights. And then suddenly a tiger was pursuing him. So he did the natural thing. He tried to run away from it, but he ended up in a ravine. But in that ravine, he saw a, what do you call those things when you swing?
Okay, like a vine?
Like a vine, yeah, like a vine. So he hung on to that. But the problem is it went to the middle of the ravine, and he had the choice between going back to where the tiger is or just dropping 100 feet to his death. And the problem is there was a mouse at the top of the vine gnawing away at the vine. So he had to make another choice. Do I let go, plummet to my death, or go back to that ravine, swing there, and then get eaten alive? But what happened was, he saw a fruit in a nearby tree. He plucked it, took a bite, and it tasted sweet.
I like
End
that.
Of tale. End of tale.
I like that. And I'm sure everybody's like, well, what happened? Did he get the lion? Did he get eaten by the lion? Did the mouse send him to his death? Did he fall? Come on now. What's the end of the story? I'm like, that is the end of the story.
These Zen riddles or tales. That's how I reacted when I first read it about 30 years ago. I said, what's happening here? What gives? So it took a while before I understood what they were trying to say.
Right. Exactly. I love that when we had that there's so, whether it be Buddhism, whether it be Zen meditation, there are just so many rich stories, like with any philosophy or ideology or religion, there's so many stories. But maybe I'm biased, but when I read many of the koans and the Buddhist stories, they just resonate because for me, I mean, I was raised Catholic, but I have pretty much turned more toward a spiritual path.
Yeah.
But even Catholicism has plenty of stories. But the thing I like about Buddhist stories and stories that involve meditation, they just are so applicable. I mean, it's funny because when you hear a story like yours, like, that's not applicable. I'm like, I don't understand that at all. But I totally get it. But to my point, like, there's so many stories in Buddhism and other Eastern religions and philosophies that just really they were written thousands of years ago, but they're applicable today. And I'm sure anybody with any religion would say, well, yeah, our stories are the exact same way. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I will get to those. For right now, I'm going to stick with Buddhism. And by that, like, I'll just one at a time. For me, I have a very universalist approach when it comes to religion and philosophy. I'm like, I'll take something from here. I'll take something from here and whatever.
And I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think living a rigid life where you stick to one path, well, there's really nothing wrong about that, especially if you're not hurting anyone, if you're helping people.
Right.
But if you are in that path where you find it making yourself recluse and not allowing yourself to learn from other people, which we ought to, all of us
Right.
ought to,
Absolutely. Yeah.
then therein lies the problem if we don't open up to those other
Absolutely.
cultures, as some people would say.
So if we're thinking about meditation, that's a great thing to talk about in regards to finding out what works for us. We talked about it just recently, just in a couple minutes ago, about how turning inwardly is going to be beneficial for us, because if we try and run from who we are and try and just put our head in the sand, it's not going to be beneficial for us. But for me, when I'm meditating, there are just so many instances of reflection and introspection. Do you find the same with your practice as well?
Oh, definitely. But I have to admit, there are days that you're just blank.
Yep.
That's good too.
Yep,
but
absolutely.
In those days where you suddenly get a flash of inspiration to do something, or a flash of inspiration because you heard, you had a nice conversation which sounded mundane when you were there, right. But when you were already in the meditation session, you realize there's a lesson there. There's a deep lesson there.
Right.
So all these moments, you bring them together. It belongs to one life, one space.
Right.
So the nothingness that you would feel in a mundane session or versus a session where there's a lot of reflection. I think there's one in the same.
Exactly. And for me, I think it's just so it makes life calmer, obviously. I mean, if you go through life not knowing who you are, what you believe, just a variety of things we can't even list. Life is just so much more enjoyable, and life is never going to be like roses and kittens every day, obviously. But with a meditation practice, it helps me understand the things that are challenging for me. I'm like, okay, what is the lesson in here? And I can get drawn into the, oh, woe is me, this stinks, or I can just sit and say, okay, I brought this to myself for some reason. Now show me why I did. Exactly. Now, have you been teaching meditation for a long time?
I'm not really a meditation teacher. The inspiration of the podcast, for example, is me looking at other meditation approaches and modes.
Nice.
And especially the approaches where for some people, it's about meditation, sitting down. For some people, it's about walking, taking a stroll,
right,
or simply standing up, or being mindful of what you're doing. And for some people, it's listening to music or poetry.
Right.
And these are the things, the stimulus, especially when it comes to the externals like music and poetry, are outside of us. But once it resonates and it sounds like I've heard that before, or it speaks to me, then that means that's in and of itself is part of you. So, going back to your question, the teaching meditation, I think that's the way we teach meditation, or how we can teach meditation is to make people aware that being mindful of what you're feeling and even just sitting down and paying attention to what's happening is meditation.
Exactly. And it's funny, you bring up a great point, because I think many people get a little apprehensive about learning how to meditate because they think there is a rigid way to meditate, that there is one way to meditate, and that involves, I'm going to say it, and I hate even saying it, clearing their mind. I'm like, no. It's not about clearing your mind. You clear your mind, you are no longer on this side of the grass, as they say. Our minds are meant to think. Our minds are meant to create thought.
That's right.
Meditation is just a way of saying, okay, cool.
Yeah. Instead of even while we sleep, it's working. It's there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we just it's just a way of looking at those thoughts.
Right.
But I love the point that you made about how meditation and mindfulness connect us to the air quotes outside world, because we're part of everything, and everything is interwoven. So that mindfulness, that awareness is kind of taking the duality, the separation. So like I look out my window, I see trees. I'm like, cool. If I'm not mindful, I'm like, that tree is another thing. when I'm mindful, that tree is me, and it's part of my world, and it's part of the energy of that tree is part of me. And even though that sounds esoteric, it's just a wonderful way of connecting. I mean, I think one of the challenges we have in our world today, regardless of where you live, is people feel disconnected, not just from nature, but from each other. And they see the world as people out there as like different entities, and there's like no connection. People are like, when you get on social media, like, you read any comments and everybody's just like, I'm like, God, people, come on, just get together, relax. You have different thoughts. You're going to have different thoughts. Let people have their thoughts and you have yours, and just relax.
Yeah. Exactly. Social media exacerbated everything. It made, I'm not putting the blame on them entirely, but it has made contrasts that there's us and them and me and you are different entities.
Right.
Actually, technology with the gadgets and all the things that go with it is a good thing.
Indeed.
I think it's Dan Dapani in one of his podcasts. I heard him say it's a great thing, like your cell phone. It's the best thing that ever happened. But if you abuse it, like when you're at night, when you're with your wife and you're not paying attention to her,
right,
you get into trouble because you're not paying attention to her. So it's going to abuse the way you use it and abuse you how it uses you. So,
and I agree wholeheartedly, because there are times when I'm just like, well, here's a great story. The other day I was going into the supermarket, and I'm in my car getting ready. I'm like, you know what? I am not bringing that phone. I carry that thing around like it's like an extra heart. I'm like, I don't need this thing. So I left it in the car, and it was, believe it or not. So the first couple of times I'm like, where's my phone? And then I'm like, oh, that's right, it's in the car. But after a couple of minutes, I'm like, I am untethered and I feel amazing.
Untethered. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And to your point, anything has the propensity to be used or abused or misused. And that's a great example, because I mean, it boggles my mind, and I'm sure you're the exact same way. We're not peers per se, but you can remember a time when there weren't cell phones. It's just like, I've got the knowledge of an entire planet in my hand. That is wild to think about. I can get any answer to anything.
It is.
So that's incredible. The fact technology gives us the ability right now, you and I, to be talking.
Right. This was just a pipe dream in Star Trek era.
Right, exactly. Right. That's wild to think about too. Like, obviously, when I was in high school, I'm like, when you grow up, you'll be talking to people all over the world. You'll see their faces, and you'll just be talking to them. Like, okay, buddy, put down the pipe.
Well, inversely, I was at an antique shop, and my son tagged along with me. I think he was 10 years old that time. And I said, oh, look at that black big phone in front of us. And he said, where? I was
so was it a rotary phone? It was a
rotary phone, the big heavy ones. It was funny.
What the heck is that? Oh, that's too funny. Well, when you meditate, we've talked about it briefly at the beginning of this time, that meditations, and I would love the fact that you put this out there, that sometimes you meditate and you just meditate. You close your eyes, you relax, you become aware of your body, your breath, and the timer goes off, or if you're doing a guided meditation, it ends and you're like, okay, back to the day. And then there are other days where you are meditating and you get an inspiration, or you get an insight or a wisdom. Does that, when was the first time that happened to you? And does it happen frequently, infrequently, or just happens every now and then?
That question is fantastic. You got me thinking there, Thom, because now I realize that all the aha moments are not in the meditation or minutes after the meditation session. It was either hours before or hours after. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, it happens during the time you hit the shower.
Yep.
That's when it happens. When you're taking a stroll without your phone with you, or with your phone but playing a song or a tune.
Right.
and you're not mindful of the messages or the calls that's coming in. I'm thinking right now, maybe it's because you set the ground and the tone to allow these ideas to come in. It's like paving the way for these great ideas to be received by you.
Right.
And now you made me think, because that's a great way of making your doors welcoming to these great ideas.
Indeed. That's a great point, because if we are teaching meditation one of the reasons I teach meditation to corporations is many times they want me in there to talk about, okay, cool, we want to increase creativity, focus, attention. I'm like, yeah, we can do all that. And with creativity, it's so easy, because regardless of who you are, everybody's creative. And when people think about creative, they're like, well, I'm not an artist. I can't paint. I can't draw. I'm like, that's just one aspect of creation. If you make dinner for your family, that's creation. Exactly. If you create a spreadsheet at work for whatever reason, that's creation. But in order to become more creative, we have to free our minds. And you brought up a good point of opening that door, because our minds are so full. Our monkey minds, as meditators and Buddhists say, is just jumping all over to so many different thoughts that, like, how can you generate an original thought? How can you create anything if your mind can't even focus on one thing? So when we have the ability to become still, either on the cushion or off the cushion, that's going to make its way into our lives. So we're going to have that focus, whether we are, quote, meditating or out in life. That's one of the benefits. So if you're at work and you have a meditation practice, you are naturally going to be more creative, because your mind is able to focus. And it's not thinking about, like, okay, what am I having for dinner? Did I pay that bill? I'm like, what am I going to do at the gym? And it's just, but once you train your mind, and I think that's one of the things to kind of go back to, talk about meditation. Many people think that it's sacred. And to your point, of course it's sacred, because it's part of who we are. But it's also about things that are very physiological. Like if we think about taking a breath, we have the stress response. And of course, if we have a stress response, we have a de-stress response. And that's the relaxation response. That's meditation. And it's triggered by deep breaths, not by contacting entities or wisdom in your meditation. It's literally by just tuning into your breath, you're creating that relaxation response. By taking those nice deep breaths, expanding the diaphragm, you're sending a signal to your brain to say, cool, I'm in no danger right now. So whatever I was stressing about before, I can go back to bringing the blood to my fingers, my toes. I can go back to my heart.
That's the physiological explanation. You explained it fantastic, Thom. You just explained the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system.
Exactly.
Where if you are stressed out, you're getting ready for a fight, you'd be taking the deepest inhale that you could think of.
Right.
Like when you go to the ring and go for that boxing bout, you'd do that big inhale. And then once you're done, like a sigh.
Yeah.
That prepares you for opening up and receiving those ideas. Creativity.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a great point, because you can't receive anything if your mind is full. So, and it's not about clearing your mind, but it's about having that focus and saying, okay, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on in my mind, but I can choose, because of my practice, what I want to focus on. And sometimes you might not even want to focus on anything. Not that you're running away from it, but you're just like with an open meditation where you don't try and stop thoughts. You literally, take your requisite deep breath, close your eyes, and you're like, I'm just going to observe. I'm going to observe my surroundings with my eyes closed. I'll listen for things. If a thought comes in, I'm not going to get ramped up. I'm just going to see it. Where's it come from? And just let it be. And if you want to go one step further, of labeling it of thinking or feeling or hearing. And then that way you could be in the meditation as well, and just really understand that you don't have to get drawn into every thought. I mean, I think that's one of the challenges we have in any part of the world. We think that all thoughts are real and they all need to be responded to. I'm like, not even close. If I responded to every thought that was in this melon, I'd be BS crazy. Or I'd just be like, out of control, because all our minds, I think they say that I've heard 40,000 thoughts in a day, 60,000 thoughts in a day,
Yeah,
whatever the number is, it's a lot. So if we
it
respond
is.
to all of them, yeah, absolutely, we could go a little bonkers. But having the ability to bring our focus to like, cool, I want to pay attention to that one. That one, cool, it
That's
could
right.
go. That,
That's
yep,
right.
that's got pertinence for me. Awesome. And just let them go. So, I mean, that's one of the benefits of meditation and mindfulness. Do you find it to be the same in your life as well?
I never knew you could treat depression symptoms from your phone. But with this prescription app called Rejoin, it's possible. It's for adults aged 22 and up with major depressive disorder who want to add to their antidepressant medication. And get this, it's the first and only prescription app authorized by the FDA to treat depression symptoms. Rejoin does not replace your current medication. Be sure to use as directed by your healthcare provider. And if your depression symptoms worsen, seek help immediately. Get started today by talking to your healthcare provider or visiting meetrejoin.com. That's meet, REJOYN.com.
I think so, because the idea of you being given the choice to make that choice,
Right.
like out of 40,000 thoughts an hour or a day or whatever frequency they come in, and you choose several for the day, then for Catholics out there, Christians, that's your free will.
Yep.
That's your free will. That's you could pay attention to all the noise, and honestly, you won't be able to comprehend all of them or altogether any of them. So that's the free will that you have, and being mindful of those things that you ought to prioritize,
Right.
is the very essence of why we're here and responding to the very purpose why we're here.
Yeah, exactly. Which is obviously a very deep question, but with a meditation practice, it helps us kind of figure that out and not just run from that answer.
That's right.
Let's dig a little bit deeper into TM per se. And I'll be honest, as a meditator for over 40 years, I don't know a ton about TM.
Yeah.
I do know that it is practiced, and you can correct me at any time. And I'm like, Thom, you are not quite right with that one. So do you, as a TM meditator, do you practice 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening? Is that correct? Or is it?
That's the prescribed number of minutes to do in the morning, and sometimes mid-morning before lunch, and one before you go to bed. And it's actually bringing you to a space where you find that calm, to be more receptive to the ideas that might be coming in. And the practice is about focusing on one mantra,
Right.
in the TM, Transcendental Meditation space. And it allows you to focus on that thing and makes all the other noise not disruptive, and give you an opportunity to find that level. And then once you get out of that session, now you find that you are more alert, awake, and alive.
Right.
Maybe it's because of the focus that you gave or the rest that you allowed your mind to have. So that's the TM space.
Now, when we think about a mantra, we've talked about that here, so I would imagine most listeners know what a mantra is. But how is a mantra obtained in TM?
They give you, your mentor will whisper it to you. So that's what you focus on. And I realized some of the mantras are specific to your age. But we're both Catholics. There are a ton of mantras that we have in the Catholic faith, right?
Oh,
the Rosary, for example, that's the mantra. We still practice that, and honestly, I find that more effective, because not just the idea of reciting that, but also spending time with my family. Because when we pray, we're taking a stroll around the neighborhood with the dogs and all. Right. So that's a great way to allow and teach my kids to be mindful of these prayers, find meaning in those, and attach these good memories to the mantras that we are reciting. Well, the rosary is a mantra.
Right.
Yeah.
In regards to TM and the mantra, is there a direct lineage that it's part of? Is it Buddhist? Is it anything? Is it religion related?
It is. It is. Some of them will deny it, but I don't want to. I don't want to verge on the controversial.
Like,
but it's Hindu.
Right.
It's Hindu. The origin is Hindu, and I don't see anything wrong with it. I know of priests who practice that, but it's the anchor idea of that sound that you imagine. Don't even say it out loud. It's just running in your head like a record on loop.
Right. So that's a great question. So is it always going to be words, or is it going to be a sound or a vocalization that's not a complete word?
To me, it's a sound, because I realized the mantras that I was given were in Hindi.
Right.
It was in Hindi. So it's a sound when I first heard it. And when I was young when I was first given the mantra, and couldn't care less what to research and find out what that means. But later on, I realized, it's a Hindi word, which means this and that there.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Now, is that mantra pretty much affixed for life, or do they change, or is it pretty much kind of
they
part
change
of who you are?
I've changed mine twice over the course of 20 years.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. But to be honest, the model and the approach you can very well apply and put it on a parallel, like the religious practice we have. Mm-hmm. To me, the most effective prayers are not those that you say out loud, at least for me.
Right. I agree.
When you sit down and you pray to yourself.
Yep.
Or listen to it.
Yeah, exactly. Has there ever been a time, excuse me, where practicing TM has conflicted with your with Catholicism and with your state of religion?
Well, at first, I had those doubts because they dressed like the teachers of the Beatles, like Ravi Shankar,
right.
And then they showed videos of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And I wanted to make it clear, are you asking me to denounce my Catholic faith?
Right.
I said, no, not at all. All right, then that's it. And then I find myself applying the principles that when I say a prayer, particularly those mantra-like prayers in the Catholic faith,
right,
it has more meaning. It gives me more depth. And at first, I didn't understand why. It's like me putting a texture to it, a scent to it, more visual to it.
Right.
There.
What a wonderful realization, because one of the things I remember when I was younger and I went to church all the time was, on Sundays, just like reciting, things that I'm like, I have no idea what I'm saying. Like, I know I'm supposed to say this, but I don't know what the heck it means. So like
you and a million Catholic boys.
I'm just going to say, I'm like, wow, I bet I'm a rarity. Yeah. But I love the fact that you made the point that when we have that connection, whether it be through meditation or through prayer, that when we're in silence and stillness, those words actually do have a connection, and we know what they mean, and not just know from a conscious sense what they mean. They are felt within us, whether it be a Catholic prayer, whether it be a mantra, a Hindi mantra, or a Hindu mantra, and they just have much more resonance because, as we've talked about throughout the entire episode, our minds are not full of everything else. When I'm at when I was at church saying like, I'm like, I don't even know if I'm getting this right. I don't even know if I'm supposed to stand, sit. I'm like, kneel. I'm like, man, this is really busy. As a 10-year-old kid, I was like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? I want to be swimming. I want to be playing. I want to have great food on a Sunday.
I know what you mean. I experienced that with my boys.
Oh, yeah.
You have to tell them that this is what it's about, and you have to explain that.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, if you've been studying TM for 22 years, then has that process evolved, or has it pretty much stayed the same? Because one of the things that I like about my practice is that because I am not affixed to one practice, I can do anything. I could do Zazen, Tonglen, a meta meditation, anything. Has your meditation, has a TM meditation practice, does it have an evolutionary path, or does it stay pretty steadfast?
Well, quick answer is yes. In fact, for the purists who might be listening to us, purist TMs or TM practitioners, I'm not what they might call the traditional one, because first, it has evolved. And the mantras have a deeper meaning, and I've since attached it to several other approaches, like other forms of mindfulness, the Catholic prayers, the Christian prayers, even sometimes being mindful of my Muslim friends. When they talk about it, you feel and know that there are similarities, that you and I are no different.
Right.
You may have a different name for it or a different practice. When I kneel down, you may be prostrating on the floor. And when I stand up, you may be facing the east or Mecca. So, but it's the same. Really, so the evolution happens. It has to happen. Otherwise, we're not paying attention to the others that ought to be paid attention to.
I mean, I think that's one of the greatest things that I like about meditation and a universalist approach to religion is that it's all encompassing. It's like, and you put it so wonderfully, because like the purpose, in my opinion, my humble opinion, of religion is to connect to divinity. Yes. And however you do that, whether you are sitting, standing, facing east, facing Mecca, it's like everybody's got their own way. But the basic gist is, I want to connect to something greater than I am. So to me, it just boggles my mind that we have any challenge. Well, it shouldn't boggle my mind, but it's like, oh, my religion is this religion and everybody should be this religion. Or I'm like, really? Is that religion? Are you kidding me?
Well, Thom, you mentioned something great just a while back. You said breath.
Right.
Which is energy. And we're all God's breath.
Yeah,
He
absolutely.
breathed into us. So the first sign of life is the breath. And it came from God. It's divine. The origin is divine.
Exactly. And like you said, doesn't matter how you get there, as long as you get there and as long as you realize it and appreciate it and connect to that. And if anything, again, in my humble opinion, religion should be doing exactly what we're talking about, connecting all people, regardless of race, gender, ethnicity. I'm like, doesn't matter. You put it great. We're all breathing. Sure. So you know what? We all have that unity. So let's embrace that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
In your meditation practice, have you ever had a moment where something struck you, or you have an inspiration, or you have something come to you where like, I don't understand that at all? And sounds like I hit the nail on the head, huh?
Yeah. If I had a dime for every time that happens, I'd be a millionaire. Wow. There are times where I guess it's also the allowing of things that you cannot comprehend to allow you to go up to higher levels of understanding and comprehension, and maybe even, I dare say, spirituality.
Right.
Because as you know, I'm not sure who exactly said this. It could either be Aristotle or Socrates. I mean, listeners, please correct us, whoever it is.
Yeah, exactly. Anybody who knows ancient Greek, please
tell us.
In.
He said, the more you know, the more you don't know.
Yeah. Yep.
So we go to those levels where we suddenly find ourselves, what is this? This is something new.
Right.
And in corporate speak, you know this very well, Thom. In corporate speak, one of the most dangerous phrases or sentences a corporate person would say is, that's the way it's always been done.
Yeah. Right. I shudder when I hear that.
Yeah. That's so scary, especially now in the age of AI, of ChatGPT. Right. I mean, you're going to lose your job, man. In a couple of
seriously.
You get your pink slip. So that's yes, it happens. And I welcome it, and everyone should welcome it, because that's a sign that you're verging new territories.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the fact that it gets you excited. It gets me excited too. I mean, many times it has me like what the heck did that just mean? Like, okay. And one of the things I tell my students is like when you have those moments, they can be transcendent. They can be very powerful. And sometimes you might not even know what it means. But for me, the practice that I go with, and like if I don't understand something, and not just from a conscious sense, but like if something comes to me in a meditation, it used to be I try and bring it through my brain. I'm like, because my brain's powerful. I'm like, I'll find the logic to this. And oddly enough, or coincidentally enough, in a meditation I was taught, I'm like, dude, that's your brain's cool, but it's not everything. It's like your body, feeling it in your body, the energy around you. So if there's ever anything that comes to me and I'm like, I don't get it, I don't like spend a lot of time on it. Usually it's my way of my higher self saying, hey, we just want to, it's got kind of like a spoiler for a movie or a teaser. It's like, this isn't the whole movie, but we just kind of want to let you see what's coming up or what's going on. So I just put it on the shelf. I'm like, okay, this will have meaning sometime in my life. And 9 times out of 10, maybe it's 2 months, maybe it's a year, maybe it's a week. I'll be like, oh, that's what that meant. Have you had moments like that for yourself as well?
You mentioned the mind is the first receptor of the new idea or the feeling. But this may be for another episode if you see this interesting. I believe in the M-brain or the M-brain approach, which is the head, the heart, and the gut. Mm-hmm. We have 3 brains. This sounds controversial for most people. And what the heck? No. You have 1 brain. You have your 2 cortices in your head. No, we have 3 brains because they found out physiologically, this is how they prove it, that the neural networks in your brain are also present in your heart and in your gut. Wow. So there will be instances when you say, I feel it's right, but it sounds ridiculous. right. Exactly. But it's so moving and so crazy an idea that I want to do it. The gut tells you, go do it. Just do it. That Nike statement is a very gut brain statement.
Yeah, exactly. And trusting that intuition is always going to lead us onto a path of growth. And to my detriment, way back in the day, like I was just talking about, like when I relied solely on my head, I got in a lot of trouble. Not literal, but I was just like, what was I thinking? I'm like, that's the problem. You were thinking, and that was all you were doing. You weren't feeling, you weren't intuiting, you weren't like going with taking in the energy around you. You were just thinking. And every time you just think,
that's right.
It's never going to go well.
You put it so eloquently because when you're thinking, most people think it's cognition. It's mental cognition.
Right.
But when you feel, it's either your emotions or when you're trying to get the gut feel of it, you have to align these 3 brains. Once it's aligned, you're centered. You're set. Once they have that agreement between the 3 of them, which is you, by the way, then you probably are on the right path.
Yeah. And that's a great thing to do to talk about in regards to meditation. And it doesn't have to happen directly in meditation. One of the things I find is that I am more centered and more in alignment because of my meditation practice. And it's not just because I'm on the cushion. Like once I get off the cushion, that alignment kind of stays with me. And I'm better able to handle any situation because I am in alignment. My gut's talking now and not just my brain, my heart. They all work in concert wonderfully.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, let's shift for the last couple of minutes talking about your show. How did your show come about?
In 2021, I left corporate work and the previous company that I was working for. I was heading learning and development for that company. So I've been practically a trainer and teacher. And my training for teaching is the toughest crowd in the world. Remember that, Thom? High school. The toughest crowd in the world.
La, 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 la. Don't make me go back.
So I decided in 2021, after several years in that industry, I left because everyone we were meeting and communicating with was just in a Zoom room. I'm nothing against with the Zoom rooms, but because of our distance, I wish I could take a short commute to New Hampshire or you to
me
Manila,
too.
right? But back then, everyone was meeting everyone else in the Zoom room in a box talking to that. Sometimes there was even a time they just turned off their cameras and said, "I'm sorry, something's wrong with my camera." And, they're lying.
We've all done that.
Yeah. And then I got so sick of it. I said, we're not shaking hands anymore. It's over a year almost that we're not hugging or giving ourselves high fives.
Right.
So it got to me. So I was part of the Great Resignation. And then one morning after I resigned, it was sometime in March or April, I heard a voice at night that woke me up. I wasn't startled. It didn't scare me. It wasn't terrifying. The voice was so calm, and it was such an androgynous voice. You couldn't tell if it's a woman or a man. It said two words: healing voice. So puzzled, like the moment you asked me, is there a moment where you don't understand what's happening? That was right. So I wrote it down on my whiteboard, healing voice, whatever that is, because I said, I'm not a doctor. I've never been in the medical field. I was in the investment and insurance field, selling healthcare, but I was not technically that guy. So I asked my wife, what does that mean? Then my wife said, you're a meditator and you center yourself when you do that. What if you teach other people to also do that in their different ways and to find that comfort in that calm? So honestly, I was dumbfounded. I was struck. I was stupefied. I love my wife very dearly, but it sounded like the voice of an angel when she spoke to me. I mean, she was, somebody used her. And that's how it started. I started to record guided meditations. And then as the rest, as they say, is history. We're going to our second year next week on the 1st of May.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And thank you for sharing that story, because that is touching. And it really encapsulates what we're talking about. Having the stillness, having the silence to be receptive to these things. And as we talked about too, not knowing what it means, but knowing that there's a place where you can go, and not just your sagacious wife, but but other places to tune inwardly. I'm like, okay, I heard this. I'm like, I don't know where it came from. And to be honest, I don't care where it came from, but it means something. I don't know what it means, but thankfully I've got a way of finding out. I just got to kind of shut out the world. I'm like, cool. Just give me a couple seconds or 20 minutes or 20 years and I'll figure it out.
And with that experience, I'm not really saying that I am the healer, but the approach of giving people that place where they could go to and find different approaches and methods. What's rewarding is when I get notes and comments and personal messages, direct messages that says, this helped me through this pandemic. It's still helping me through. So I guess that's one reason that I should keep on.
Yeah. So I kind of get choked up because I feel the exact same way. I mean,
exactly. You know what I mean?
Back in the day, I'm like, I got to have 20,000 people listening to my show. I'm like, I don't care. I'm like, my voice will find its way to the people that need to hear it. Yeah. And to that point, it's just so touching to get a letter from somebody to say, my mind was just a mess and you're helping me find calm. And I'm like, I'm just saying it, I get choked up. I'm like, because there's nothing more rewarding to me than that. And, you say you're not a healer, but you definitely are. But you're a healer that is helping somebody understand their healing potential. And we all have the ability to heal, whether it be spiritually, mentally, physically. But we don't know that. So we need guided people to guide us, like yourself, like myself, to really help people understand, like, you are powerful, you are wise, you are loving. I'm like, embrace all that. Just shut out the world. You don't have to do it. You don't have to cocoon yourself. You don't have to hide away, but find moments in the day where you just say, world, you're out there. I'm in here and I'm going in deeper and I'm going to find my divinity, my power, my joy. And so I am so thankful for the work that you're doing. So by all means, not that you needed my permission, but please keep going because you're doing some great work.
I should say the same thing of you, Tom. Likewise.
Thank you. It's
Likewise.
a total labor of love. And every day I wake up and I'm like, I didn't know this was what the path was going to be for me, but nothing was clear, and nothing has been clearer for over 2 decades. Then I'm like, wow, this is it. And I couldn't be happier. So I'm glad there are people in other parts of the world doing wonderful things as well. So, and I'm looking forward to being on your show as well and providing for your show. So
yes, please, Tom. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, so people know, what's the name of your show and how can they find it?
The name of the show is Find Your Daily Calm. We release episodes every other day. And these are short meditations, kind of like giving people the instant noodles if they're craving for instant calm. Funny I put it that way. I don't know why I put it that way.
Yet, so keep the food references down.
So they can go there, and I know some podcasts could be overwhelming, especially if it's many ideas. So if you're tired of the noise that you get from work or from home or from wherever, go to that space. It's only about an average episode would be about 15 to 20 minutes.
Oh, that's phenomenal. It's amazing because I think you're hit the nail on the head, because I've recorded many meditations for Insight Timer, the app Insight Timer.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the ones that is like probably next to my sleep meditation, one of the most popular, is one that I recorded that's 4 minutes long. It's just meant for people that are in the workplace. I'm like, I can't sit down for 20 minutes. I'm like, cool, let's do it for 4 minutes. And I mean, that's a very pivotal point to bring up. And I'm sure you talk.
I know what you mean, Tom. There are instances where we're probably the only podcasters that when people tell us, I fell asleep listening to you, I'd be so happy.
Oh, sweet.
Some podcasters will be offended. I mean, what are you talking about? You fell asleep.
I was giving you nuggets of wisdom and you fell asleep. No, I love that. When I go out to Insight Timer and read some of the reviews, they're like, I think it was great. I only listened to half of it and then I fell asleep. I'm like, sweet. It did what it was supposed to do. Oh, man. And well, that's actually a great segue as we finish up our hour, just to talk about, like, many times I used to meet many people when I used to be a personal trainer. And some of the people that I worked with are like, I'm not getting enough sleep. I'm like, how come? Like, my mind doesn't stop. I'm like, well, you may have come to the right guy. So meditation is definitely helpful for insomnia because it helps us for two things. You can either listen to a guided meditation, which is going to lull you right to sleep, just like yours, like mine. But the other thing too is when we have the ability to see thoughts as things, we don't get trapped in the story and trapped in the glue of a thought. We can just say, cool, I'm having a thought, let it go, and then slowly drift to sleep. So that's going to be beneficial.
That's right.
For anybody. So, well, Sel, I want to thank you so much for our time today. As I said earlier, stay on the line. We're going to talk, listeners. Sorry about that, but we're two friends that are going to catch up off the air. So, but thank you so much for your time today. I truly enjoyed it, and I am thankful that I have a new friend and that we'll be talking much more in the future.
Oh, likewise, Tom. Thank you very much.
Listeners, I can't say enough about Sel's podcast and Sel himself. What a great, great guy. His podcast, Find Your Daily Calm, is available on most podcast apps. With that said, please remember that Stitcher is going away at the end of the month. Actually, about 2 weeks from now. So you won't find it on Stitcher, but Apple Podcasts and all your other podcast players. One of the reasons I'm sure it's been so successful is the fact that the meditations that Sel presents are shorter in length. For those of you that follow me on Insight Timer, I recorded a meditation that is 4 minutes. Actually, I think it's 3:34 if I'm not mistaken. And I did it for that exact reason. I know there are many people that stress throughout the day. Maybe they find themselves in the middle of the day really just amped up and they need something quick to get them back. My meditation certainly does that. But I would definitely have you go out to Sel's Find Your Daily Calm podcast because he's got not just one, he's got several, and they all do the same thing. Help us come back to this moment, this mindful moment. So, my friends, you go think about the things that Sel and I talked about. Know that I'll be back here tomorrow with another episode of Zen Commuter in the morning and another episode of Calmer in 5 in the evening. But for right now, this is Thom Walters for Zen Commuter signing off, saying make the rest of your day absolutely spectacular, and I will see you on the road.
Wasn't that just a refreshing and insightful conversation? So much fun. Thom Walters truly has a way of making complex topics feel as warm and familiar as a chat with an old friend. If you enjoyed this episode, I highly recommend checking out more of Thom's work at zencommuter.com. His episodes are filled with nuggets of wisdom and a soothing vibe that's perfect for your daily commute or any moment you need a bit of peace. Thank you for joining me on this special rebroadcast. Stay tuned for more calming and inspiring content here on Find Your Daily Calm. Until next time, take care, keep calm, and carry on with mindfulness.